relations. Bilateral relations have since enjoyed comprehensive development, being elevated from a partnership to a strategic partnership, and then to a comprehensive strategic partnership. The progress has brought tangible benefits to both peoples. Under the guidance of previous and current leaders of both parties, especially Chinese President Xi Jinping and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, the two countries have constantly increased mutual political trust, expanded practical cooperation, deepened people-to-people exchanges, and strengthened coordination of international affairs. Bilateral cooperation in various fields has been at the forefront of China-Africa cooperation, setting a fine example for both China-Africa cooperation and South-South cooperation. This year marks the 10th anniversary of President Xi Jinping's first visit to South Africa in 2013, as well as his proposal of principles of China-Africa policy, sincerity, real results, amity and good faith, and pursuing the greater good and shared interests. During the past decade, President Xi paid 3 state visits to South Africa. More recently, in the past 2 years, President Xi and President Cyril Ramaphosa have held successful meetings and spoke on the phone and exchanged letters more than 10 times. Consolidating and developing China-South Africa relations is of great significance to advancing the development of China-African relations and promoting solidarity and cooperation among developing countries. Both being major developing countries and emerging markets, China and South Africa share the same or similar visions of development, security and international order. The two countries have closely worked with each other on international and regional affairs within multilateral mechanisms including the United Nations, the Group of 20, G20, the BRICS and the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, among others. Fruitful cooperation has been carried out which has effectively safeguarded the common interests of the two countries and developing countries at large. Economic and trade cooperation has always been the highlight of China-South Africa cooperation. In recent years, such cooperation has embarked on the track of fast development. China has remained the largest trading partner of South Africa for 14 consecutive years, and South Africa has become China's largest trading partner in Africa for 13 consecutive years. The implementation of the 9 programs of China-Africa cooperation announced at the 8th Ministerial Conference on the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation is making rapid progress in South Africa. Amity between peoples holds the key to relations between countries. Close cultural exchanges provide rich nourishment for consolidating the public support for China-South Africa friendship. People-to-people's exchanges have advanced in a comprehensive and multi-level way and become institutionalized, covering education, culture, healthcare, media, sports, tourism, youth, women's empowerment, think tanks, and many other fields. Standing at a new historical starting point, the relationship between China and South Africa relations is embracing new development opportunities. The two countries will further enhance the comprehensive and strategic nature of their relations and work together to promote the building of a high-level community with a shared future for China and South Africa in the new era.
Your Honorable Fikile Mabalula, Secretary General of the African National Congress, Your Honorable Marapani Ramakova, Second Deputy Director General of the ANC and Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Professor Paul Tambo, Senior Research Fellow at the Thabo Mbeki Africa Leadership Institute, Mr. David Muyeni, Director of the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, good morning. Welcome to today's seminar on Xi Jinping and China-South Africa relations in the new era and the book launching for Professor Paul Tambo. Today's event is very timely. From August 21st to 24th, at the invitation of the President Ramaphosa, President Xi Jinping will attend the 15th BRICS Summit held in Johannesburg and pay a state visit to South Africa. During the visit, President Xi Jinping and President Ramaphosa will co-host a China-Africa Leaders Dialogue. President Xi Jinping's visit coincides with the 25th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between our two countries. It will be President Xi Jinping's fourth visit to South Africa after 5 years. South Africa is a country to which President Xi Jinping has made the most state visits. This fully reflects the great importance President Xi Jinping attached to China-South Africa relations and his strong determination to deepen cooperation between our two countries. As a veteran diplomat, I had the honor to participate in and witness President Xi Jinping's visit to South Africa in 2018. I felt firsthand how President Xi Jinping, with his groundbreaking and personal dedication, devoted huge efforts to advance China-South Africa relations and lead the way for building a China-South Africa community with shared future. President Xi Jinping pointed out many times that China is ready to work with South Africa to enhance bilateral relations, build a high-level community with shared future, practice real multilateralism, join hands to safeguard developing countries' common interests, and to steer the international order towards justice and sound development. President Ramaphosa also emphasized that South Africa is committed to working with China to advance China-South Africa relations. Under the personal guidance of our two heads of state, the China-South Africa Comprehensive Strategic Partnership has continued to move forward with higher qualities in broader scope and at higher levels. The CPC and the ANC have maintained close exchanges and communications. The two sides continue to deepen mutual political trust. And not long ago, our comrade SG did a big delegation to visit China. So this visit and communication has made many good results that will be very important for our two parties' communication. Our economic and trade cooperation as well as people-to-people exchanges have produced fruitful results. We also have smooth communication on multilateral occasions. The China-South Africa relationship has long gone beyond the scope of bilateral relations. It has set a fine example for China-Africa relations, South cooperation, and cooperation among emerging market countries, and has become increasingly strategic and globally influenced. Under new circumstances in the world, we look forward to China and South Africa better leveraging our bilateral relations, as well as FOCAC, BRA, BRICS, and other platforms to deepen friendly exchanges and practical cooperation, so as to foster a stronger China-South Africa community with shared future, and add new shine to our relations in the new era. Today, we also arrange a launch event for Professor Tanbei's new book titled Xi Jinping and the Thriving China-South Africa Relations in the New Era. This book is a very good reflection of sound exchanges and mutual learning between our two countries. I hope to see more excellent works like Professor Tanbei's in the future. Last but not least, I wish today's seminar and book launch a complete success. I also look forward to hearing the insight from our all guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Like you said, we are eager for the profound insights from.
Thank you very much, Ambassador of the People's Republic of China, distinguished guests, second DSG of the ANC Deputy Secretary General, Comrade Marupeni, and also Minister of Monitoring and Evaluation in the Presidency. It was with a deep sense of honor and a gratitude to receive the invite to participate in this important occasion of a seminar on President Xi and China-South Africa relations in the new era. Firstly, allow me to pay tribute to President Xi for his steadfast leadership, together with the collective of the Communist Party of China, on promoting social, political, and economic relations, not only China and South Africa, but the whole African continent. I make emphasis on African continent because we in South Africa have as our long-standing political resolution that South Africa cannot afford to be an island of success amidst a sea of continental poverty. In this regard, we believe that our relations should help support the realization, among others, of Agenda 2063 to reduce economic marginalization of Africa's people. It has been a long journey. Over the 25 years of South Africa-China relations, and most certainly over the past 10 years since President Xi first undertook his visit to South Africa. Our party-to-party relations between the Communist Party of China and the African National Congress have grown in leaps and bounds, and this has provided a mutual learning platform to grow our respective political parties, the economies of our countries, and meet the socio-economic needs of our people. The relationship between China and South Africa significantly tells a story that says people who embrace different systems and cultures can in fact cooperate and exchange social, political, and economic lessons for the greater good of all humanity. This is the distinct feature of our relationship as the African National Congress and the Communist Party of China, underpinned by mutual respect whilst assisting each party to reach its development goals. This is the profound lesson that we must carry for the next 25 years of China-South Africa relations. Of course, like all relationships, this too has not gone without challenges. However, the determination by the leadership of both the Communist Party of China and the African National Congress has ensured we sail through those challenges. The geopolitical challenges that continue to redefine our world can learn a lot from the China-South Africa relations. Our understanding on geopolitics is not informed by mere idealism on world peace, but global peace itself is better guaranteed by stability in the balance of power. Our observation is that a multipolar world may, as a result, serve best the objectives of world peace and global security of all nations. In this regard, allow me to reiterate that we said on the occasion of our recent visit to China as arising from our National Conference resolution. The ANC has been part of the non-aligned movement We are also part of the anti-imperialist and anti-colonial forces. The ANC remains firm in its view that all conflicts should be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy. We totally reject gunboat diplomacy. Again, on that occasion, we amplified what President Xi said on the profound meaning of international solidarity, and I quote, "We must help others to succeed while seeking our own success and ensure all can enjoy the outcomes of modernization. Humanity lives in a community with a shared future where we rise and fall together. For any country to achieve modernization, it should pursue common development through solidarity and cooperation and follow the principles of joint contribution, shared benefits, and win-win outcome. The front runners should sincerely support other countries in their development," close quote. Our participation together with the Communist Party of China in BRICS seeks to cement the global aspirations for an alternative world where all countries compete on the basis of their natural and human resource endowment, as opposed to unipolar dictatorship. It is a platform that will enable the kind of solidarity envisaged by President Xi and all other leaders of the BRICS community. Certainly, as South Africa, we share in these profound values and thereby cherish our continued membership of BRICS, working together to usher in a new world underpinned by justice and equality. In this regard, we reiterate our message that BRICS is not an enemy to any country or any constellation of countries, but rather an example of how the entire world could relate in solidarity underpinned by progressive social, economic, and political principles. BRICS will certainly advance the cause of multilateralism as opposed to unilateralism. It is precisely why we welcome the geopolitical shifts from a unipolar world to a multipolar world, as this will help foster multilateralism. Dialogue premised on multilateralism will help resolve various conflicts, not only those pertaining Russia and Ukraine, but those also pertaining the South China Seas, Western Sahara, Israel and Palestine, Sudan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Niger, and many more. Multilateralism will also be an appropriate arbiter on economic and trade matters, as opposed to the unilateral blockades against countries such as Cuba, Zimbabwe, Iran, North Korea, and so on. We take this opportunity to thank President Xi and the Communist Party of China for supporting our initiative at hosting the BRICS Political Parties Plus, which sought in the main to be a springboard to mobilize African political parties into the BRICS progressive fold. The event was a resounding success, and that could not have been possible without the support of the Communist Party of China and all other political parties. Today, we take stock of the China-South Africa relations, acknowledging the strides we have made on economic trade between the two countries. As noted by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, earlier this year, on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the relations between our two countries, on the 1st of January 2023, this was consolidated into a comprehensive strategic partnership and underpinned by a new 10-year strategic programs of cooperation. Over those years, our trade grew exponentially. Trade saw an increase from less than 1 billion rand in 1998 to over 544 billion rand by 2021. Many on South Africa are very much familiar with Chinese trading malls around the country, which has opened, among others, to affordable electronics for various household uses. These Chinese trading malls employ a significant number of people, helping reduce our unemployment figures. Of course, it will be important that as South Africa, we too explore how to build South African trading centers in China to promote South African manufacturers and services. Historically, South Africa has been reliant on mineral resources to boost our economy. Part of areas wherein China could look into is investment in mineral exploration, as we aim to capture at least 5% of global exploration funds in the immediate term. Linked to that, as expressed by our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, recently, we no longer want export just raw minerals. Instead, we want to have our minerals beneficiated here in South Africa as part of our industrialization drive. That's another areas China could look into, that is mineral beneficiation. As I conclude, allow me to thank you once more for inviting us into this important event. We also thank you for having invited us on several occasions over the years to share our political experiences on party-to-party basis. The most recent being the June visit 2 months ago. As we head for the national general elections next year, we remain committed to organizational renewal, which must restore and improve the trust that our populace has had on the African National Congress. We remain committed to being revolutionary democrats for the fundamental national transformation of our society. As the ANC, we remain guided by the objectives of the National Democratic Revolution to create a society underpinned by non-racialism, non-sexism, equality, democracy, and the prosperity for all. We chose the path of a developmental state as the political architecture of our national transformation, so that the state can decisively intervene in favor of certain progressive developmental aids, such as capacity in the state must see to it that we provide water, electricity, sanitation, roads, houses, health care centers, schools, and various other infrastructure builds. Public-private partnership have to be forced to enable the state to deliver on these undertakings, while simultaneously addressing the long-standing challenges of racial, gender, and class inequality. Over the 25 years of our relations, we have gone a long way towards deepening our democracy, institutionally, and regular national as well as local government elections remains a determinant of our democratic mandate to govern. Hence, next year we are geared towards the national general elections that we will mark 30 years of democracy and political freedom from apartheid colonialism. And in this, we can certainly count on the esteemed partnership we have with the Communist Party of China. We also welcome the continued communication between President Ramaphosa and President Xi on both party-to-party issues as well as country-to-country relations. Working together, we believe we are stronger and therefore can assail the geopolitical challenges facing our shared world. BRICS remain an extremely important platform to advance the various development objectives as amplified recently in the declaration of BRICS Political Parties Plus Dialogue here in South Africa in Ekurhuleni. We look forward to yet again working together for the success of the 15th BRICS Summit. And from us as the African National Congress, with all humility, without arrogance, we guarantee that 2024 victory is certain. The ANC will emerge victorious. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your warm and kind words. Next.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, the Secretary General of the African National Congress, which is the ruling party of South Africa, Professor Paul Tembe, author and research fellow at the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute and the writer, of course, of this book that is being launched here today. Representatives from all over the country, whether you are from political parties, civil society, diplomatic corps, the media, of course. We also acknowledge your presence here today. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Is it good afternoon now? Because I'm not sure what time is it. I'll try to say ni hao. Definitely, as South Africa, we celebrate President Xi Jinping precisely because of what he has been able to contribute to our country and Africa as a whole. We all know that during the time where many countries were actually grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen an erosion of multilateralism happening all over the world. However, as the African Union and as South Africa that was leading at that particular time, we were able to bring African countries together to be able to mutually benefit from whatever it is that we could be able to get to deal with the pandemic itself. And we couldn't have done that better without the help of President Xi Jinping, who at that particular time donated without even wanting anything, without even expecting us to send any delegation to China, to give us about 700 million dosages that were supposed to help us with ensuring that we do stop the spread of the pandemic itself, which was COVID-19 at that time. That assisted us a lot to be able to say that as Africans, we can be able to fight the pandemic itself from spreading and ensuring that we save most of our people. So we definitely have a good story to tell ourselves on the work that President Xi Jinping himself has been able to contribute to try and save lives, but equally so to make sure that we strengthen multilateralism in Africa and in the world. One of the reasons that we are celebrating, of course, the 25 years of diplomatic and trade relations between China and South Africa is precisely because we are also celebrating, as the Secretary General have already said, the growth in the bilateral trade that has grown exponentially from 1 billion to almost 500 or more than 500 billion rand. It's quite a lot. And that happened precisely because the president once told us that President Xi Jinping actually said to him, as much as we are happy to see the trade being where it is, tilting more to China, we would actually like it to grow, but this time around we want it to grow so that it can be equal. As much as China is quite bigger than South Africa, but the fact that President Xi Jinping mentioned the fact that what can China actually do to be able to assist South Africa to play a meaningful role in making sure that at least the trade balance does become balanced as it is, so that we don't have so much deficit. He said he's actually embarrassed to actually stand up and say this is the trade balance, but it is tilting more to China. So such kind of leadership makes us really celebrate President Xi Jinping precisely because of his direct contribution to South Africa, but most of all to actually ensure that whatever it is that he does touch our people personally. Because once you grow the trade, it means that job creation will be there, but the trade will also be able to ensure that the economy becomes stronger. Therefore, the people of South Africa will definitely be able to benefit. We are saying this precisely because today it is about him. We cannot wait to really see the book and read it further. I haven't been able to get a copy. I hope that after getting the copy, then we will be able to appreciate the leadership of President Xi Jinping much more better. This year, of course, we are celebrating 25 years of diplomatic relations between Republic of South Africa and the People's Republic of China. Over these years, these strong diplomatic ties have led to unlocking economic, social, and political opportunities that promote high-quality development between our two countries. Over these 2 decades and a half, our countries have deepened the wide-ranging bilateral relations, which have been elevated to a comprehensive strategic partnership and underpinned by a new 10-year strategic program of cooperation that the Secretary General has just alluded to. This has obviously culminated, as I've already said, in making sure that the trade balance between South Africa and China does grow to 544 billion rands in 2021. And we celebrate this most especially because that happened at the time where COVID-19 was actually really at its peak. Therefore, we didn't really expect this to happen, but it happening, it means that there's something special about this relationship between South Africa and China. In the past quarter century, through diplomatic missions and nation-to-nation agreement, there has been a transformational transition from made in China to made in South Africa, and definitely Africa more broadly. Your Excellency, beyond our booming trade relations, our countries have been equally invested in strengthening political power and governance through institutional capacity, sharing the best practices with regard to policy and legislation, development and implementation, and ultimately ensuring that the improved livelihood of our people remain the driving force behind our developmental agenda. It is for this reason, of course, that South Africa remain committed to the One China policy, and we are definitely going to make sure that we strengthen our relationship by also trying to make sure that we push for more missions to be opened in China that are from South Africa. South Africa will continue consolidating existing relations with China through various platforms such as BRICS, of course, that everybody knows about. In few days' time, we'll be having a summit, and definitely FOCAC. That has been actually the strength that we have been able to grow our bilateral trade, and also making sure that Africa as a whole does benefit from South Africa and Chinese relationship. We're excited that in less than a week, as I've already said, the anticipated 15th BRICS summit under the chairship of South Africa will commence in Sandton, and definitely the People's Republic of China will also be part. And we're also very excited that the President of China will also be here on a state visit. So we're not only going to be celebrating the summit itself, but the fact that we're having a state visit will definitely ensure that we are able to reach so much of the things that we have always been talking about. As you are aware, the theme of South Africa's chairship of BRICS is entitled BRICS and Africa, Partnership for Mutually Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development, and Inclusive Multilateralism. Accordingly, one of the 5 priorities of our chairship is strengthening post-pandemic socio-economic recovery and attainment of the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. We recognize the developing countries in the Global South, in particular Africa, and we continue to also recognize that we're still lagging behind in terms of key development, our developmental targets. Therefore, we acknowledge and appreciate how China has asserted itself to support and invest over the years in the entire continent of Africa. Underpinning their support has been a commitment to mutually beneficial relations. At the opening ceremony of the 2018 Beijing Summit of the Forum of China Cooperation, which is FOCAC that I've just spoken about, Chinese President Xi Jinping echoed these sentiments during his keynote address, and I quote, "We follow a 5-no approach in our relation with Africa. 1, no interference in African countries' pursuit of developmental paths that fit their national condition. The second one, no interference in African countries' internal affairs. The third one, no imposition of our will on African countries. The fourth one, no attachment of political string to assistance to Africa. And lastly, no seeking of selfish political gains in investment and financing cooperation with Africa." This is a clear demonstration, ladies and gentlemen, of China's respect of the autonomy and sovereignty of African countries, alongside its commitment to unleashing its developmental potential. Therefore, we anticipate that during our chairship as BRICS, or in BRICS, that our existing relation with China, the BRICS bloc will support South Africa's foreign objective towards the achievement of a domestic developmental imperatives, as well as promoting a broader socio-economic development goals of the African continent. The collaboration goes beyond bilateral trade, as we have already said, and it also includes regional and multilateralism, as we have already said. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, because I don't have to really speak long since the Secretary General has really spoken, and told us what South Africa actually stands for. I would just like to say, as we mark the 10th anniversary of President Xi Jinping's first visit to South Africa in 2013, we would recognize and celebrate the remarkable economic, social, and political strides made under his leadership. We wish the people and government of the People Republic of China success and peace and prosperity in all that they do, and we definitely are looking forward to welcoming President Xi Jinping during the state visit and definitely in the BRICS summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honourable. I believe our blooming bilateral relations will be taken to.
Ambassador of People's Republic of China, the SG, always pleasure seeing you. Madam, members of the media, fellow scholars, students who are here, all protocol, as we always say. SG, as we get to next week, BRICS Summit, I think it is important for us to go back in history for those who criticize South Africa or scholars who hold a very strong pro-global South views, that what is happening today, it's nothing new. We're going through a major global shift in the global politics. In 1955, ANC representatives traveled to Indonesia, Bandung. They went via Egypt. They were observers to the Bandung conference. And the issues of that time were colonialism, imperialism, disparities, poverty, inequality, the lack of technology transfer, lack of people to people. It was only 10 years since the end of the Second World War, 1945. And in that gathering in Bandung, Chinese leaders, Indian leaders, leaders of the global South registered their dismay with the post-1945 world order. Fast forward to today, we are discussing absolutely nothing other than repeating what leaders of 1955, including ANC leaders, that embarked on that trip. We deal in a world in which the dominant Western powers still control, dominate, set the rules, undermine the developing world, and Africa in particular. So it is in that context that I stand to repeat some of the issues that we see, the relationship between South Africa and China, to deal with inequality, deal with the issues of trade, and figures has already been mentioned. We've seen the growth of people-to-people educational exchange. We've seen quite a number of major infrastructure development, not only in Ethiopia, the rail from Ethiopia to Djibouti, not only in Kenya, East Africa, from Mombasa to Nairobi to Naivasha, and getting into Rwanda and Tanzania. This strategic relationship between China and South Africa and Africa is centered around a number of key areas, and Africa itself, the AU, has made Agenda 2063 as the key, and therefore the Belt and Road and Agenda 2063 are similar. And the relationship between Beijing and Pretoria and the rest of the continent is nothing else other than finding common areas of convergence between the Belt and Road and Agenda 2063. So let me take this opportunity to wish President Xi Jinping and the rest of the Global South leadership that is coming a successful BRICS summit, and pay homage to President Xi Jinping on his state visit to South Africa as we celebrate 25 years of relationship between South Africa and China. A very strong relationship. As you can see, SG has already paved the way, and SACP and other members of civil society. We have seen the number of our students growing in Chinese universities, and we have seen a number of projects, and more room is there to ensure that we explore new areas of cooperation. We always say Africans should not be left behind. I think we see other continents. As we speak, the Russians are shooting a satellite to the moon. They might get there before the Americans. The Indians are doing the same. They're shooting to the moon. And the bigger question for us, we want to see Africans getting to the moon and other areas. China is playing a critical area. So in our cooperation, we would like to see more from us as Africans, working hard, learn from the Chinese, but at the end of the day, we are our own liberators. We work as comrades in the trenches during the liberation movement. We're in the second phase of that liberation, of economic liberation. Still a long way to go. And let me turn to my brother briefly to thank him for the book that he has written. This is my second time responding to your books. Professor Tembe has done extremely well to narrate this precise relationship of China with the strength on looking at Confucianism and how it interacts with African philosophy of Ubuntu. It's a strong book, clearly written, and a lot of lessons, I think, for all of us, where it shows the similarities between African philosophy, African way of looking at life, and Chinese. And this is in line with President Xi Jinping's new introduction of key concepts: Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, and most importantly, and perhaps speaking more directly to Professor Tembe, the Global Civilization Initiative. So, Professor Tembe, congratulations on this book, and I thank you.
His Excellency Ambassador Chen Xiaodong, Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, I have to add the comrade part. That's my childhood habit. Her Excellency Ms. Ramokgopa, the Minister in the Presidency for Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation, His Excellency Joseph Opio Wilson Okulu of the South Aquarius States in the Republic of South Sudan, and currently also a CEO of the New Africa Bank. His Excellency Kgoshi Kekane of the Mandebele Eilebolo, thank you very much to make your acquaintance, and all protocol observed. Now I can leave the paper. there is a tendency with scholars wanting to be politicians. And scholars, when they want to be politicians, then they want the high seat. That is a fallacy. As a scholar, what you seek is to be an intermediary between knowledge and policy. And as a scholar, you are therefore an interface, or you create interface. As we all say, devil is in the details. Now, having said devil in the details, and in the interest of cross-cultural communication, Wotongshin Kaishi, Junjung da Chen Xiaodong Da Shi, Junjung da Lingdao, 各位嘉宾，大家好。还有，我很荣幸，就是我有这个机会在这儿演讲。我自己的本书刚发布了一本，但是这个不是我自己的本书，这是中非关系的本书，中非关系的发展。现在我们金砖的那个大会，所以我分析的事情在特别南非和中国关系是为了这个发展。It is in the interest of equal partnerships. What I will say then about that, I'm really, really honored as an ordinary scholar to be here. Although when I'm presented or introduced most of the time, I'm referred to as a scholar of the Thabo Mbeki International outfit. I also have another home at UNISA, which is the Chinese department where we teach Mandarin linguistics. Because as we create interfaces, we have to understand what happens between the two languages that brings us up. When I write about Ubuntu and Sintu in South Africa, I say we need an interface between Imfundiso as Lalini, home, private home, homestead, and formal education, because there tends to be a schism there. When we leave our homes and our villages, the tendency is that in South Africa, we unlearn our traditions in order to enter the corridors of power. Now, I also like to say that another honor for everybody here is that South Africa this year is the locus of BRICS, of the most important BRICS in my analysis, because we are no longer talking about taking countries that are in the periphery to the center. The presence of BRICS, of FOCAC, of South-South cooperation is a new system. And in order to understand that, you have to look to the so-called emerging markets. Why, after billions of years on this earth, we have emerging markets is because powers that be, systems that were the main ones, are the ones that were promoting their own markets. Newsflash, South Africa and the Global South are no longer emerging markets. They're markets by themselves. What we have is bottle holes, which we have to fill. The same way that Secretary General expressed the position of South Africa, the same way that the Minister of Evaluation steadfastly and coherently put the position of South Africa. We are not starting a journey, we are completing a journey. This cooperation, what it does for South Africa, especially, it has allowed South Africa to have access to geographical and political spheres where otherwise it wouldn't have had without a stronger relationship with China. Now, I'm not going to repeat all the good of the blueprint, all the manifestations of China-Africa relations. I'm going to be the devil's advocate. If we talk about development, it's because we need new vehicles to reach that development. Devil in the details. Today is also a 10th anniversary of something very important. The 4 proposals for China-Africa cooperation. If you read them in English, it's very nice. Sincerity, real outcomes, affinity, good faith. But for example, if you take sincerity, which is Chengyi in Mandarin, and you take Chengxin, which is good faith, affinity, which is about the family, you can travel 4,000 yen back within Confucianism to understand what are those things. Sincerity can be sincerity to a Bible, First or Second Testament. Good faith can be being a disciplinarian or something like that, or be faithful to something. But if you read within the Chinese context, that is the rationale and the makeup of a family home, which that rationale then transfers to provincial government, which that provincial government, then it transfers the same model to the highest office in the country. Therefore, when Chinese people say President Xi Jinping, actually they are trying to say, or they are saying in Mandarin, my father. Within the context that's in the Chinese language, Yo Xiaojia, Yo Dajia, Yo Daguo, which the country and the family, those are one and the same thing. The same respect you give to your mother and your father. It is here I'm trying to break down how Chinese society lives and how it interprets itself. But also then I will encourage the Chinese and with scholars like us, Professor Munyaye and many more, to translate the African rationale, African value system onto the Chinese partners. Without further ado, that was just a minor introduction of what is contained within my book, or within our book, so to speak. We've got 5 bottlenecks that stops South Africa or Africa to have access to the low-hanging fruits of the China-Africa relations. The first one I call lack of public awareness. Many people know about China, but they don't know what is at play as we're having relationships with China. That is the chapter 2 of the book, because I have to clear out those ones first in order to understand China as a country, or in order to understand how to access those benefits. The second one is conflict between policy and law, which is no fault of South Africa, but South Africa is a young democracy. There is a schism between South African policy and South African law. Let me just make one relevant example. If you go to an Egyptian law book or Algerian law book, there are not less than 12 to 20 pages on the benefits of direct investment, FDI, to the SEZs. In South Africa, we have one little line there at the end, and it's actually murky a little bit. So what does that mean? That means the next person who will move into office will just shift that policy because it's amorphous. And there are no consequences because it's not in the book of law. The third one is the one I can't change because of our own political system we've chosen, short-termism and long-termism. I'll leave only with one question on the third one. How can a country that has been forming and oppressed at the same time for 500 years solve this problem within 2 political terms, which is 10 years? And by the way, when the new government comes in place, tries to correct with its policy the programs of the previous government, but it's only 2 terms, on the second term, somebody's preparing for exit. So there is that spiral of short-termism. We must then find a way of long-term. How will we find that? By having a blueprint in South Africa that is continuous, irrespective of who the incumbent is. And why I'm raising this point is because China has that continuity. So that will help us create some sort of synergy. I'm not saying let's change our constitution. I'm not saying that let's strengthen the land or make it longer. I'm just saying let's find points of synergy. Now, the last one, which I've observed over the years, 20 years researching China. We are reading from the old book, wanting so much to be neoliberals with all its rights of transparency, of accountability, and yet as we're eating now into the new world that is being built by BRICS, by Forum, FOCAC, and by all the South cooperation countries, we're eating from the new book. From being peripheral, we're coming to the center. But we're insisting to read the book that kept us at the periphery. So in the chapter where I deal with the impact of China, especially President Xi Jinping, in the geopolitical landscape, we have to do something because this relationship has shot us very high into bigger spaces. The 3 words or the 4 words that I read of affinity, sincerity, and real life results, they are, by the way, the 4 pillars on which President Xi Jinping forms the foreign policy of China-Africa relations. That alone, that in China's foreign policy, there's a specific part that has been growing, which started in 2013, as we're talking about the new era, its 10th anniversary. One of the forecasts, there was the second China's Africa policy. In 2017, there was people-to-people relations, which Professor Munyaye. So we can see a successive development and a rationale that builds, and as it develops, it moves us, South Africa, away in Africa from the periphery to the world center. So as China develops, it is at the same time establishing, in real sense, not on paper, the notion of partnership of equals, mutual respect, mutual benefits, creation of common prosperity, and in the process, building a community of a shared future. Thank you very much.
Thank you,